Hi there, it's Phil with Phil Effects. Got another tutorial here in After Effects. This will be a quick one also. We're going to talk about anchor points and what those are and how you work with those in After Effects. So let's go ahead and get started. So anchor points are something you will commonly use, especially when you're creating characters and animating characters. So I've got a character here, and let me import that into After Effects. We've got it, I can see it, show it to you here on Illustrator, and it's just a quick drawing of the old Phoenix College bear, and he's been broken up into multiple parts. You can see as I drew it, and there's layers here that represent each of the specific parts. So I have a layer here for the right lower arm, a layer for the right upper arm, for the left cuff, for the left hand open, and so I've got numerous layers that I have drawn that correspond to different things that I will want to use with this character. So let's bring him in, and we'll bring him into After Effects. Quickest way to do that is just double click here on the project file. So if I double click, and here's the Illustrator file, phoenixbear.ai. So I just click on that, and you should see down here in on a Mac some options for importing that. If you don't see them, just click here where it says options, and we want to not bring this in as footage. We want to bring this in as a composition, and we want to retain layer sizes. This is really important, retaining the layer size. What that means, I'll explain it when I get things open here, but it will keep the smaller objects like a hand and an arm and a foot and a leg the size of that actual drawing, not the size of the composition. So let me open this up, and I can show you really quick. So we have composition, retain layer size, open, and that brings it in. And let me double click this composition it made, and there's our Phoenix bear. And because I brought it in and retained layer size, so if I click here on this upper arm, you see these points. These are the bounding box for this specific layer, and it recognizes that the size of this arm was only this big. If we didn't do that, then the size of this little arm drawing would be the whole size of this composition, which ends up being extremely cumbersome to work with, and you don't want to do that. So you always want to retain layer sizes when you import things. Let's blow this up a little bit, and let me move down here. And you can see real quick here that what we're viewing is that arm, and in particular there's this dot in the center. That's the anchor point. What the anchor point is that's the center of rotation for this particular drawing object, in this case this upper arm. And if I go in and I hit R for our quick thing, you can see rotation here, and I just go in and I start to rotate this. There you can see that the arm is rotating right around that center axis, and that's interesting. But you can quickly see that if you're trying to animate a character, you really don't want to be rotating around the center of the arm. You want this center of rotation to be upwards here in the shoulder. So how can you do that? Well, there's a couple of ways you can do it. One way is you go in and we take this, and I take the anchor point. All right, so if we go in here and hit the twirly up here, and here's this anchor point, I take the anchor point and I can start to move the anchor point around. But you notice if I move the anchor point around, then so I'm putting the anchor point on the shoulder. See that? See how I'm changing? And I'm sliding this around, and I'm going to put that anchor point right on the shoulder. But now the whole arm is misplaced. So I have to go back in and take this arm and move this around a little bit. And not only that, it's really not in the position I want, so I have to go in here, and I actually have to put a little bit of rotation on here just to get things back the way that I like, so I have a starting point. While you can do that, that's really not the best way to do it. So let me undo all that. And the best way to do this is you use this tool here called Pan Behind, right up here. And you take the Pan Behind tool, and we Click on that, and your cursor, note your cursor changes, and there's this little square box under that arrow. All right, that means you're using the pan behind tool. So now I can take and I can click on the center and note what happens. Okay, my arm stays in place, and I've snagged this anchor point, and now I can drag this anchor point and I put it exactly where I want it. Well, I want to put this anchor point right there and leave it right like that. Now here is the key thing you always want to remember when you're working with anchor points is when you're done and you've moved the anchor point, get back over here and click on selection, because you don't want to be moving and sliding around and grabbing things on in your animation and other things and mistakenly have the pan behind tool activated. Because if you do that, what you're actually doing is you're not moving the object, you're moving the object's anchor point, and that's going to really confuse you down the road. That being said, initially when you want to set up a character, that's exactly what you want to do. You want to go in here and move this, use the pan behind tool so you can move the anchor point. So now we have this arm, and I go in and I want to do a rotation on it, and I can rotate this, and that's exactly what I'm looking for in terms of doing an animation. So I've got the anchor point slid to the correct position. It is animating the way I want to animate, and if I do this to the rest of my character, then I'll get all of the anchor points properly positioned, so then I can animate this character. And when we do character animation for one of our later projects, this is the very first thing that you do when you bring in your character is you go in and you move all those anchor points to the correct position so you can get your animation done correctly. So hopefully this has cleared up anchor points, what they do, and we'll follow this on with some more tutorials down the road. This has been Phil with Phil Effects. Thanks a lot, and bye.